Do you find it hard to explain to friends and family what you now do? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure out challenges on your own? We have created a community for ex-corporate people running their own business who want to live a life they love whilst giving back to their community. This is the Build, Live, Give show. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Build, Live, Give podcast, episode number 15. Hi, I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your guest. And today we're very lucky to have Emily Jaksch. Emily works for HR Gurus and she's an absolute gun at managing people or helping small businesses manage their people. She had an excellent corporate background in HR, worked at some of the biggest brands in the world, and then she left to start a family and get some freedom by running her own business. So she goes through that journey. And also she wants time to do what she loves, which is skiing around the world, which is a great pursuit. And she just delivers value bomb after value bomb of value around how to deal with people. She goes through the key challenges the small business owners face that she sees every day in her consulting practice, and she gives great advice on how to solve those. So you're actually absolutely going to love this. She also talks about the cause that she's very passionate about that she started called Big Umbrella. So, get your pens and papers ready. It's a fantastic podcast. The audio gets a little choppy at some points, but look, it's well worth the listen. And also what's happening in the community. So the community continues to grow. So thanks for all of you listeners that are spreading the word. The community, the podcast subscriptions are growing. We're getting lots of 5-star reviews, but please, if you haven't left one, please go in and leave a 5-star review. That really helps to build this community. And also you can go and check out our free Facebook group called Build, Live, Give. So if you're an ex-corporate running your own business and want to live a great life and give back, it's a perfect place for you. So now what I'll do is hand you over to Emily Jaksch.
So welcome Emily Jaksch from HR Gurus to the Build, Live, Give podcast. We're going to get to know a lot more about you today, but why don't you start with a bit of your backstory, a little bit about you up until now.
Thank you for having me, Paul. In regards to where I've been before starting HR Gurus, I worked for 12 years in corporate HR, so I'm a qualified HR practitioner. I worked for some big companies such as Holden, Wesfarmers, and my last job was actually in superannuation at Host Plus Superannuation, and I got to a pretty senior level working in corporate, and I worked very hard over those 12 years and got to a point in my career where I was, earning 6-figure salary. I had a car park, had all the perks, but I wasn't really happy and I didn't really understand why. I was like, this is what I wanted, why aren't I happy? And I guess what I realised was that I wasn't living according to my own personal set of values, and it was starting to really get me down, and I felt like I was killing my soul, I guess, which is probably a common story of people working in corporate, particularly in HR. It's sometimes a thankless job, and you sometimes can be the executioner, the bearer of bad news, and I was feeling completely burnt out. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought about a career change, but then I thought, actually, I really love HR. And I saw a gap in the market for small to medium businesses. Back then, there probably wasn't as many small businesses as there are now. That was 7 years ago. But I saw that there was a lot of small businesses that didn't have a HR manager. They were too small, but definitely had HR issues and needed HR advice. So I took a giant leap of faith. It was extremely scary, leaving the comfort of that, 6-figure salary and all the perks. I downgraded my life, which was kind of hard. But looking back on it now, it was the best thing I ever did. At the time, I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. I just thought, I'll just give it a go. Got my first client and off I went. I guess the first 2 years I was selling my time for money, and then I realised, well, how am I going to replicate myself, and started hiring people. I took on a business partner at one point. I had my son, who's now 4, and I had 6 weeks off and came back to work, brought him into the office. And yeah, it's been a interesting journey. It's been challenging, lots of ups and downs, but I love it. It's the best thing I ever did. I've built a business where I have enormous flexibility. The first 4 years were extremely difficult, I'm not going to lie. And there's no get-rich-quick scheme, which I think that a lot of entrepreneurs or people starting their own business think there is. It's just, a lot of hard work, trial and error, and, you start to kind of grind it out, I guess.
Yeah, and that's, what the community here is about, helping people through that. And this podcast is helping to show that. And I think you did right. 4 years. I know for me it was 5. For a lot of people we interview, it takes some time. So, we'll dig into that in a little more detail in a moment. But why don't you tell the listeners just something a little bit about yourself that maybe friends or family would know, but our listeners wouldn't?
I guess what all my friends and family know is that I'm a mad skier. So I work really hard so that I can enjoy ski holidays every year. That's what our family is really passionate about. It's my happy place. It gives me something to focus on and work hard for and reward myself. And I've just gotten back from spending 5 weeks in Canada. And in a corporate job, I probably wouldn't be able to do stuff like that. And my big goal is to get to a point where I can do a whole season in Austria skiing with my family. My husband's half Austrian. So that's the big goal, is to set up my business so it's not just about me. It can run without me. And that's something that I'm working towards every single day.
That's excellent. And look, I take my hat off to you for taking that amount of time. I know a lot of business owners really struggle with stepping outside of their business and letting it run without you. And, you when you first took that big step, what was your thought process? How did you go about ensuring there was success for your team as you did something like step out of your business for 4 to 5 weeks?
Well, when I didn't have a holiday initially when I started my own business. I think for the first 4 years, really. I had small holidays here and there, but not really. I was completely burnt out. And the first time I took a holiday, I went to Japan. It was probably 2-3 years ago, and it was a bit of a failure, to be honest. I hadn't set things up properly, and what I've learned from that is that you need to put the right systems in place. You need to ensure that people are trained, so that your business is not reliant on you and the knowledge that you have in your head. And that's a really hard thing to do, because a lot of your business is initially about you, and it's really, I guess, letting go of your ego and letting go and realising that you don't have to do it all, and that other people can do the work to the standard that you want. And I think a common thread with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, they can be quite, how do I put it? They can be control freaks.
Yes.
And that is something that I've really had to work on. And it's a big ego thing, I think. And one of my biggest learnings is and I've used a coach to work on myself, and to let go of my ego and realise that, yes, other people can do it as well as I can. And that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is trusting your people and allowing them to do the work.
I think that's great advice. And someone said to me recently, you mentioned, to your expectations. Someone actually mentioned to me that it should be to the expectations of your clients.
Correct.
Because sometimes your expectations are far higher, and you set such a high standard that actually, if they even got 3/4 of what you expect, the client's still going to be happy. So
Exactly, yeah. And I've definitely mellowed and I've evolved, I think, personally a lot since starting my business 7 years ago. It's been a really massive personal journey for me. And one of the things that I've done a lot of is investing in myself. I have a business coach that I work with, and we talk every other day. I've gone off and done personal development. I went off and did a neuro-linguistic programming course, which was one of the best things that I've ever done. So it's really about working on yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself, and continually investing in yourself, I think, is really important, because when you're working in a big corporation, you get time to do that, but a lot of business owners don't do it once they start their own business.
yeah, that's great advice. And I think some of the things you get rewarded on in corporate, they don't necessarily serve you well in your own business. So I think that constant development that you spoke about, getting a coach or getting a mastermind or getting some help, I think is great advice. And if you look back to that moment when you took the big step, what were some of the biggest fears for you in setting up your own business?
The biggest fears were probably money. It's like, how am I going to make money and maintain the kind of the financial position that I'm in now? Because, as I said, I was earning a really good salary. I had a company car. I had all the perks. That was a really big fear for me. But what I've learned through this personal journey is that money actually doesn't make you happy, and it's not about that. What makes me happy is coming to work every day and doing what I love, and having personal freedom, and being able to be creative in what I do, and being my own boss. That's actually far more rewarding for me than making lots of money. So it's been a real shift in my thinking and what's important for me. And I think that was probably the biggest fear that I had. Also, how am I going to get clients? I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. Once I got my first client, I was like, okay, I can do this. And as I said, the first couple of years, it was just me selling my time for money. But it is pretty scary, but there's a lot of resources and help out there that that can be used to support people. One of the biggest, I guess, things that I did that helped me was I joined a BNI networking group. I hated networking. I thought it was quite stupid and annoying, and I've learned to love it. That was something that I had to learn to do. But getting yourself out there and surrounded by like-minded people, like the Build, Live, Give network, it's really important to surround yourself with people who've been there, done that. And, everyone's very generous, and it is a bit of a community out there of small business owners, I think. So it's about tapping into that and not being afraid to get help.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And often on these podcasts, we reflect back in corporate when, my point of realization was when my, 10 peers were all going for the next promotion. And that's what success was back in corporate. And it was very competitive, and I was an open book, and I just realized it wasn't the right environment for me. Whereas in the communities like the BLG, and I've had some involvement with the business network as well, everyone's there to help because the pie's so big. You've got your own particular niche, but you all want to help everyone else succeed, because you know how hard those first 4 years are, like you described. So I think that, the community itself of small businesses is a fantastic place to be. That's certainly what I've found. Have you found a similar thing, Emily, in your experience?
I have, and it's amazing how much time and information and a wealth of knowledge that people are willing to share with you. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really rewarding also for me now to be able to help other small business owners when they're first starting their journeys, and I get a lot of satisfaction from being able to share uh, what I've learnt, because if I had have known what I knew now, it would have been a lot easier for me. That makes sense.
Yeah, spot on. And, I love, I don't think it happens in too many other countries, but I love here in Australia, and you've, got a 4-year-old son now, is the mothers group. My wife went through it. I haven't been directly through it, but I think it's just a brilliant network. And to me, that is similar with, what we're creating with Build, Live, Give, that you've got that community where people understand you. Because I don't know about for you, but a lot of my corporate friends still have got no idea what I do. They're so wound up in their own challenges at work. They just can't come across to your world. So I find that it was very lonely to begin with, but now with people like yourself and others in the community, there's a lot of people that have got your back. That's what I've found. Have you come across a similar thing?
I have, and it's fantastic to be able to give and receive, and to be a part of a community. And I think that it's only growing. I think that there is a massive trend. People are getting really sick of working in corporate, and trying to climb the corporate ladder and selling their souls. So there is a massive trend for people to be, taking that leap of faith and starting their own businesses. So it's great. I know that small business is one of the biggest, or is the biggest employer of people in Australia. So we are seeing a bit of a shift, and I'm really proud and excited to be part of the Australian community, and can't wait to see what happens next.
Brilliant. Well, taking us on to that, when you walk into a networking event or a party and someone says, "So what do you do, Emily?" How do you describe what you do?
Sure. So HR Gurus is essentially an outsourced HR provider, and we specialise in the SME space. So our ideal clients have around 20 employees. That seems to be the sweet spot, or the tipping point, where a business is in a growth phase and they start to realise, wow, we actually need some help now. We need some more structure around how we manage our human resources. And we come in and set up that structure and provide what we call a virtual HR manager service. So it's essentially a HR advice service for the management team. And we pride ourselves on being straight talking, jargon free. We're very practical. We understand the challenges that small business have. Most of our consultants, we've got about 8 people in our team now, have worked in corporate, so they've got that corporate thinking and experience, but we try and decorporatise the way that we present that to our small business owners.
Great. Yeah. Look, I think that's excellent. And I know when I used to be at a large corporate, they used to always talk about think global, act local. And I think that combination I've seen with yourself, that you've got all that corporate pedigree, but you really do think about it from a small business, and going through those hard years yourself to build what you've built, which is a very successful small business, comes in handy. And what are some of the key challenges you see owners having, small business owners having, with their people around that 20 employee mark? What are some of the key challenges you see them having at the moment?
Sure. Probably the biggest challenge for a small business is how to attract and retain talent. It's a highly competitive market for the best people. They're competing with big global companies who can pay big bucks. So it's like, how do they differentiate themselves? How do they, provide an attractive employment proposition for people who are looking for money, I guess. One of the things that we do a lot of work in is helping our clients understand what's our purpose, what's our mission, because what we find is most people don't just want to work for a company and earn the big bucks anymore. They want to work for a company that they feel personally connected to, especially the millennials. That's very important for them. They want to feel like their work is important and they're making a difference in the world. So we're really passionate about helping our clients tap into, well, what is our why, and how can we articulate that to our existing employees, but to the external market. So that's one of the things that we get a lot of satisfaction from, and helping them understand, well, what are our values, and trying to attract and retain people who are aligned with those values. The other key challenges for small business are probably around performance management. Every business has performance issues with their staff, and we find that the key issues stem from not having a proper structure in place. So not having established contracts of employment, employee or HR policies in place. So there's no rules. So people start reverting to their own, and the business owner gets really frustrated. Why are people doing this? And it's like, well, you've got no structure. A lot of them are quite hesitant to put that in place. They're like, oh, well, we're not a big corporate company. We don't need that stuff. But it doesn't matter how big you are. You definitely need rules. Humans are humans, and they will always try and push their own agenda or, push things to their advantage. So unfortunately, that's why we need rules, and we need values to set those standards of behaviour. So typically that's the first thing that we do when we get involved with any of our clients, is implement that basic HR structure. And then we move into performance management systems, so setting up KPIs for employees. That's the next phase. And training managers on how to recruit, because small business can't survive with underperforming employees. There's nowhere for them to hide.
Yes.
So it's really important that small businesses invest in a proper recruitment process and getting the right people on the team initially, because if they don't, it costs them a lot of money.
Look, I think that's some great advice on what's really current, some of the key challenges. I'm sure a lot of the listeners are nodding their head as you're saying that, and then some ways to solve it. And look, I must admit, when I first started developing my team, I really was hesitant to put in some of the great people processes that the Coke system had globally. They got 800,000 people. I think one of the best companies in the world around people. And I really resisted it, and because I thought it was restrictive, and I wanted to push back against what corporate was about. And what I've realised is, no, there's some things like you mentioned around the structure and the rules and the KPIs that if they're done the right way and you explain the why, it's really important to do that and bring those into a small business. So I think that's a great blend there of, like you said before, your experience in corporate, but the practicalities of how you implement it into a small business. And no doubt that's why you've been so successful. And so as far as today, sort of how do you make your revenue today?
So most of our revenue is through retainers. So we have a retainer system where our clients sign up to a virtual HR manager package. And that, I guess, gives us some stability around cash flow, whereas initially we used to do a lot of project work. We still do project work, but the majority of our revenue now comes from that retainer system. It's been a big learning for us, because with projects, what would happen was our clients would get us to do a project and then they'd go away and then they'd come back sometimes if they had an issue. So it's about, I guess, locking in that revenue stream and building that partnership and that longevity in your relationship, which is really important for any business. And it's working really well. The other revenue stream that we make quite a bit of money from is recruitment. So we have launched a new business in the middle of last year called We Care Recruitment. We were doing a lot of work in the aged care space, so we decided to niche and pull that business away from HR Gurus and really specialise in aged care recruitment. So that's another really key thing that we've had to learn, is how do you niche, how do you become a specialist, which is really important because you want to be the go-to person in your industry, in your niche, and and then you can start to own that niche.
Yeah, look, I think that's great advice. And what was the name of that company again?
We Care Recruitment.
We Care Recruitment. Excellent.
Correct.
And that plus anything else that Emily mentions will be in the show notes as per usual, listeners. So write it down, but we certainly will have that for you. Yeah, look, I think that's so important to do exactly what you said, to be as niche as possible. And I know for a lot of our clients, they've certainly benefited from that. Excellent. And as far as some of the key challenges in you running your own business at the moment, what are some of the key challenges you face?
A key challenge for me is finding the best people. I've gone through a lot of trial and error, and I've tried multiple different kind of recruitment strategies. But what I've learnt is, for me, the people who seem to work best in my business are return to work mums. I don't know why, it just seems to work the best. So I find return to work mums amazing at time management. They love coming to work because it's a bit of the time that they can spend on themselves, if that makes sense, and by themselves. Yes. So they really enjoy and cherish that time at work. It's me time. And they just really seem to align with our company values. And yeah, I just find that it works the best. In terms of other challenges, cash flow is always a challenge. I think I've read an article the other day about how small businesses are basically bankrolling corporations because we get paid last, which is really annoying. We've put a lot of checks and balances in place to try and alleviate that. With the retainers, we have a payment date. We've tried to put in place direct debits for some of our clients.
Yes.
Which also helps from a cash flow perspective. What are some of our other challenges? Obviously, finding new clients, that's always a challenge. We've invested a lot in SEO of late over the past 12 months, and that's a long-term, strategy. Nothing happens overnight. You need to be patient and you need to work really hard at whatever you're doing from a marketing perspective. And yeah, I guess they're probably the key challenges that we're facing at the moment.
Okay, great. And just on the SEO, how did you go about picking the right partner to work with? Because I know a lot of our listeners, picking suppliers is something that they really struggle with. Who do I pick? I've got 4 people all saying a similar thing, but how do I know which one to pick? How did you go about picking the right SEO partner?
Well, lucky for me, I found someone through my BNI network. I'm not a member of the BNI chapter anymore. And his name's Martin Harrington from Web Obsessed. And I have used previous to that, I used a few other companies and they weren't very good, to be honest. But Martin is amazing. He's outcomes focused. And we meet monthly and we go through all of the data and the analytics and we just continually tweak. He's got me to the first page of Google when people are searching for HR consulting, which is pretty amazing. And we are not using AdWords at all. We've used a number of other strategies to get us up to the first page. He's done a lot of work on my site from the back end, but it's all about content and fresh content. So we do 2 blogs a week. So it's a lot of work on my part, but it's also, he knows exactly what I need to do to get us up there, which I think is pretty valuable. We're getting leads through our website, weekly.
Brilliant, great. And look, I completely agree that it's once you've got the right partner, it's the consistency of effort. And it sounds like your consistency of 2 blogs a week is delivering your results, which is great. And no matter what the algorithms change through Google, etc., if you're delivering great content to people that adds value, I'm sure you'll continue to get leads. So that's excellent. And Next section will sort of go into, a bit more around the live. So, sort of take me through a typical day for you, if there is such a thing.
Sure. One of the first things that I do every day, which has helped me enormously, is I've got a vision board that I created, and I look at that, and I do a number of affirmations that get me in the right state, so that I'm starting the day, in the best way that I possibly can. So I know that a lot of people think that things like that are, a waste of time and they're a bit wanky. And I admittedly, I used to be one of those people. I used to think, oh, what a load of rot, talking to yourself. Like, who does that? That's like Tony Robbins garbage.
Yes.
But through working with a coach and working on myself, I totally understand and believe the words that you tell yourself, whether they're conscious or unconscious, have a massive impact on your state. So investing that time, getting yourself right, getting yourself focused on being positive and being powerful has a massive impact on how you start the day. And I now do it with my son, and we call them his magic words. So before he goes to sleep every night, we do some magic words with him, and it's amazing what an impact it has on him. So that's something that I do religiously every day.
Great.
I try and do some exercise. So I take my dog for a walk, which is another really, I think, important thing. You need to spend time making sure that you're healthy and that you're looking after yourself, and that you're not burning yourself out, because initially that's what I did. I burnt myself into the ground, and you can't maintain it. And then I obviously spend some time with my son in the morning. I take him to daycare, and then I'm off. I'm in the office. I try not to work too late, because I want to spend time with my son and go home and spend time with my husband, obviously. But yeah, the first thing I try and do when I get into the office is look at my to-do list. So I'm a big to-do list person. I think it's really important to be focused and ensure that you're, ticking off what you need to be ticking off and not getting distracted. So yeah, I get into work, I look at my to-do list, I kind of plan what I'm going to be doing, and off I go.
Excellent. Fantastic. And, with your son who's 4, and as you said, you take, some great skiing holidays, working for yourself, do you think you'd be spending as much time with your family? I know it's a bit of a rhetorical question, but, how is it different to what it may have been if you had stayed at Host Plus or in corporate?
I think that the expectations of the hours that you work when you work in corporate are massive. So it's about being seen in the office, and it's it's just a different, I think, ball game. Working in my own business, I work long hours, I'm not going to lie, but I do it on my terms. And if I want to have a day off because I want to take my son to his swimming class, or if I want to leave early, I can, because I'm my own boss. So, it's give and take. I do work long hours. I would say that now, 7 years in, I'm working less hours. I'm getting smarter about where I put my effort, and I've got a team now, so I try and delegate, I let go, and I'm in a much better place than I was 4 years ago. Like, there were times that I thought, what the hell am I doing here? I'm working longer hours than I was when I worked in corporate,
and getting paid less.
Getting paid less, that's right. But it's, you've got to keep your eyes on the prize, and you've got to work really hard to get to that point where it starts to pay off. And I feel like in the last couple of years, it really has started to pay off. So yeah, it's really exciting and very rewarding.
Yeah, excellent. And that's what I love about this podcast, because you actually hear people's journey. And often on social media, et cetera, you'll just get all the good at the high when someone's absolutely at their best, but you don't hear that whole journey they went through. And that's why I love what you've shared with listeners so far about your journey. So it's been excellent. The next part I know is very close to your heart, but around the give. So what's a cause or a community that you support?
Sure. So for about 7 years ago, when I was starting my business, one of my best friends who actually went to kindergarten with got back from Nepal, and he is a filmmaker, and he made a film about some street kids in Nepal. And he came back and he said, "Emily, I'm going to start a charity. I'm going to call it the Big Umbrella, and I'm going to start a house in Nepal for these street kids. I'm going to take them off the street." And I was like, "Are you crazy?" And he was crazy, but he said, "I need your help." And he said, I want you to help me. I've got no idea what I'm doing." And stupidly or crazily, I said yes. I helped him to establish the right governance system for that charity. And we crazily rented a house over there and set this whole thing up. And now that house has 20 children in it that have been taken off the streets of Nepal. At the time, they ranged in age. Yeah, and so now the Big Umbrella is about to open a cafe in the city on Queen Street. So that's very exciting. They also have a soup kitchen that runs 3 nights a week at Flinders Street Station. And they feed about 600 homeless people a week, and that aspect of the Big Umbrella actually funds the house back in Nepal. So it's evolved massively. I'm not on the board anymore because it's become too big, and I had to, prioritise my family and have a life. And my husband was probably going to divorce me if I didn't let go of some of the things that I was doing. But it's an amazing charity, and it's started by a guy called Justin Dickinson. I'm happy to give you some more information. They do a lot of corporate nights where teams go into Flinders Street and feed the homeless, which is an amazing kind of team building activity that people can get involved with. Or you can sponsor a child. So I still sponsor a couple of children. But it's an amazing charity started by, one person who had a vision and a dream. He wanted to try and help these kids who are living on the street in Kathmandu. There's a lot of street children over there. You've been over there, but yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about, and it's really rewarding to see something grow into what it is today.
Brilliant. Well, we'll definitely put links in the show notes for that. And I know personally we had a father-daughter weekend. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and we all went in and helped in the city recently for the White Night.
Yes.
Yeah, we worked with the Salvos, basically helping people that have been displaced, the homeless people that have been displaced because of all the crowds, etc. And
wow.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So if you haven't, recommend you doing something like the Big Umbrella or something with the Salvos. It was a great experience, and especially something to do if you've got children or you're looking for a cause that's local in your community. I highly recommend it. So well done for your effort on that, and I really appreciate it. And we'll put links in the show notes of how they can find out more and support the Big Umbrella. So the last section is around some quick questions around giving some action to the BLG listeners. So the first one is, what is your number one personal productivity tip?
I think ensuring that you have focus in your day and that you don't get distracted by all of the noise. And I watched a really interesting video on Facebook from a guy called Kerwin Ray the other day, and it was about whether you play below the line or above the line in your business. And I'm sure people have heard, these analogies before. Yes. And it talked about people who are below the line are just really, really busy, and they're just busy doing things that the squeakiest wheel in their business. And people who work above the line have focus, and they're very disciplined in what they do on a daily basis. And I think that's something that I've had to learn in my business, and getting support to ensure that you have a really good plan, a great business plan, and then you break that down into 90-day goals. So that's probably my best advice there.
That's great. And I think your point before around having a coach or having someone help you be accountable through that journey is something that I fully endorse as well. I think you've been, no doubt you can track your success and your growth in your business to you making that brave step. The next one is around your mobile phone. And I know you're on your mobile phone at the moment, so it might be a bit hard to look at it. But just on your home screen, what are a couple of apps that you couldn't go without?
One of the things that we used internally is Fleep. I don't know if you've heard of Fleep.
No.
So that's
how do you spell that?
FLEEP.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially a place that we can. It's like Messenger, or we can just message each other. We've all got it on our computer, so we all communicate as a team. So that's been really helpful. I think instead of just using email.
Yeah,
so that's one thing that we use. That's probably the only thing I use on my phone from a technology perspective. I mean, in terms of applications that I use in my business, one of the things that transformed my business was starting to use Workflow Max, which is a how would you describe it? It's like a job allocation program. So we manage all of our work and our hours through that system. So it's a timesheeting system, I guess. So, it's about investing in the right systems to ensure that your business is functioning properly. And Workflow Max was one of the things that really helped me. And I know that you use a system. What's the system that you use? I can't remember.
Podio.
Podio.
Yes.
That's it. So, yeah, it's important to invest.
Totally agree. So the next question is a favourite book or a favourite podcast of yours?
So one of my favourite books is Good to Great, and that's probably like a really common one, but I love Jim Collins. I think it's a great book.
That's a cracker. I've got to say, sorry to interrupt there, but that's one of my favourites as well. Great book.
And then the other one is Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. So I'm a big fan of Zappos. I think that they have a lot to, they're probably the benchmark when it comes to culture. So that's something that's very, important to me that I'm really passionate about. And Tony Hsieh is an amazing guy. He's not your traditional, big kind of personality CEO. He's quite humble and very shy. So I love his story. I think it's a fantastic one. And I really like Tony Robbins, and that's probably it.
Great. And there's a really good, there's a podcast called Mixergy, and I'm pretty sure he interviews Tony Hsieh, and it's a really good interview. It's either him or Tim Ferriss. I'm not doing it much justice, but it was great to hear his story if you haven't got the time to read the book. Excellent.
Sorry, I'll just add one more person there, and I actually have a crush on Simon Sinek.
Yes.
Yeah, so he actually came out here and I was away and I was really quite devastated because I wanted to go and see him. But I think that his work is amazing.
Yeah, look, and if listeners haven't, and we'll put it in the show notes definitely, but just go onto YouTube, type in Simon Sinek, Sinek, I think from memory, and
Correct.
That video, and you described it so well. I actually wrote down when you were describing your why and your purpose. I think that video is spot on in creating that. So that's great advice. So other piece of advice. So if you look back, that's sort of 7 years ago, and if someone had given you one piece of advice that would have really helped you along your journey, what would that advice be?
Well, my business coach gave me this advice and it transformed my business. And his name's Nick Tang, and he's got a company called 81 Up, and he's amazing. his advice was to work out what is your company the best in the world at, and that comes from good to great in terms of the hedgehog concept.
Yes.
And then you need to focus on that. You need to focus all of your energy, all of your time, all of your revenue, investing back in that one thing that you're the best in the world at, because typically that is where you make all your money. A lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, when they first start out, and I did exactly this, is you try and do everything. It's like you try and offer all of these different products, but you don't do it well. You need to work out, it's the whole niching thing. What are you the best in the world at? How are you different? And focus on that. And don't get, distracted by all of these other things that you think that your clients want. And also working out who is your ideal client and focusing on them. So they're the two key things I think for any business, is to really understand those two key areas, and then that's going to really propel you forward.
Yeah, look, I think that's great advice, and don't be worried if you stray from that path, because you will, because I think most people have to experience it firsthand of not getting it right when they first start to really learn that lesson. But I think it's great advice, certainly something that we do in our club. It's the same thing around your ideal client, niching down, and that. I love that analogy, the hedgehog versus the fox. And entrepreneurs, by definition, foxes were always trying to find a cunning way to produce things. And, the fox will never get the hedgehog because they're just brilliant at one key thing. So I think it's a great analogy. And really sound advice for our listeners, especially those that are just starting off. So how could people find out more about you, Emily?
So people could visit our website, so www.hrgurus.com.au. We provide quite a bit of free content and advice. We blog twice a week, as I said previously. So if small business owners are looking for information about, HR challenges, we've definitely got a lot of resources there. And I'd also be happy to give anyone who's interested a copy of our book. We've got a book called What is HR, explaining what HR is for non-HR people. Small business owners typically don't really understand what HR is. They're really good at whatever they do, but they're like, oh, what's HR? Isn't that just recruitment? So we've come up with a really simple guide that most of our clients find pretty helpful.
Excellent. Well, look, I'd love to thank you for sharing your journey today. You've been very open and honest, and, to go through the 7 years and to be where you are, and to be able to take 5 weeks off skiing in Canada, raising a 4-year-old son and running a fantastic business and helping a lot of small business owners is something we admire. So well done, and we wish you every success in the future and love having you as part of the BLG community.
No problems. Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Cheers, Emily. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give show. If you found this show helpful, please share it with others so we can build businesses, live great lives, and give back to the community. If you would like to join the BLG community, go to our website, www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.